Meeting of the Housing Opportunities Commission of Montgomery County. I'd like to welcome you. I'm Roy Peace, the chair of the commission. I'd like to introduce my fellow commissioners. To my immediate right is Jeffrey Merkowitz, our vice chair. To his immediate right, Azola Shaw, commissioner. My immediate left is Robin Solomon, chair pro tem, and next to him is Linda Coombs, commissioner. We also joined by two of our commissioners who are on virtual, Jonathan Miller and also Paul Weech. To show you their diligence, they are both on vacation and have decided they're going to join us in our meeting. I can't guarantee you that I'll do that, but thank you very much for joining us for this meeting. I'd like to welcome the staff and the viewing public to this meeting. If there are no modifications to the agenda for the meeting, I will move to the first order of business, which is under our information exchange, which is we have no community forum today. We've been advised that no one has asked to speak before the commission. So at that point, do we have a representative from the Resident Advisory Board here yet? They have not come yet. And so I'll move to our next order of business, which is the report of our president, Chelsea Andrews. Chelsea,
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, the public, and the HOC team. I'm excited to share updates as it pertains to our activities over the last month. Next slide. Commissioners, as you know, we've launched a new approach in terms of how I report out on our progress, and we are all focused on the North Star of accomplishing our strategic plan. The three key objectives being expanding affordable housing in Montgomery County, enhancing the lives we touch through supportive services and partnerships, and excelling as a world-class organization. Today, next slide, I will be focusing in on the work that we've advanced together to expand affordable housing in this county. Again, just to remind the commission as well as the public, each month we will rotate through these various goals. And so as it pertains to expanding affordable housing in the county, we have three sub-goals. One focuses in on expanding our portfolio. The other focuses on expanding supply. And last but certainly not least, expanding and optimizing rental assistance. Next slide. This is just a nod to the fact that we have published our dashboard, encouraging the public to check it out at www.hocmc.org. This is a way that the public can see very transparently how we are advancing our plan. Each of these various goals can be viewed by clicking on them. It allows you to see the individual tasks that are identified with each and objectives and how we're moving along. This 26% progress bar shows how far we've come over the last how many months now that we've moved forward with this plan, but ultimately it's tracking 5 years. So it just to orient ourselves, it's okay if we're at 26% now, not in 5 years, but now. So this will be moving as we move along. Next slide. Focusing in on real estate development and what we're doing to expand affordable housing here. Many of the activities that you will see are reflections of activities and votes from the commission over the last quarter. The commission approved and we accepted alternative MPDU placements. As you may recall, in the prior board meeting, we accepted 21 HOC moderately priced dwelling units that will be placed throughout the county. We created a very unique structure that allows us to leverage the alternative placement ultimately to fund one of our strategic objectives called HOC Bridge. HOC Bridge is a shallow subsidy. We had an opportunity with our partners at NYU Furman to present the overall concept for HOC Bridge to the ARC committee, received great questions and feedback, and will be advancing the overall program design to the full commission in the near future. But we are leveraging the interest that we obtained through the alternative placements, as well as, of course, standing up 5 of those units in our current property at Grosvenor Strathmore Court. Next slide. We also have some major project updates as it pertains to the SAGE. We are finalizing our negotiations. You'll hear more about that today with the general contractor. This particular project, again, we will spotlight in our work today, is the construction of 413 units in Durwood. And we expect to begin next stages of construction, hopefully this summer. We also have taken steps as a commission with your support to advance entitlement review and design on a downtown project in Bethesda called Avondale, where we believe we will be able to deliver 200 and approximately 93 homes adjacent to the Waverly apartments that we have there. So stay tuned. Next slide. We also have, as you can see, made great progress as it pertains to Hillendale Gateway. You see the cranes when you come around the Beltway. Those are our cranes. We need to get our name on the flag there, but ultimately it reflects the work that's underway. The concrete has been poured up to the 9th floor at the Lumina. Crews are working on columns, stem walls, elevator walls for the Radia, and we are on track for our 2027 early delivery. We also have wonderful progress taking place at HOC headquarters. The exterior glazing is actually completed now, and we are gearing up for the furniture, fixtures, and equipment to be delivered. We will be able to move into our new headquarters by December, and that's what we're tracking currently as our delivery date for moving into our new home. Next slide. There are a number of updates related to legislative activity, both state, county, and federal. I will provide a high level and I will pause in the event that there are questions to allow our Vice President of Government Affairs, Ken Silverman, to respond. But on the state level, the legislative session did conclude in April on the 7th with the passage of a $67 billion budget. We were very fortunate to have a great champion in Delegates Gregory Wims, who secured $65,000 for recreational improvement at Cider Mill. And the budget did include funding for the new State Housing Innovation Fund. You all might recall this was HB 7, and it's a fund that we advocated for, and we are hoping to be the first and early adapters and proof of concept for this fund. There also was the enactment and the increasement of administrative fees, again, by way of our advocacy to ensure that the admin fees were in alignment with federal admin fees for the voucher program. We're looking forward to taking next steps there. On the county council side, there was the adoption of More Housing Now. That particular bill focuses on incentivizing office to residential conversions, streamlining processes, creating property tax incentives, and you can see that there was definitely a great deal of advocacy on both sides here, but this bill did pass. And next slide. We also have been very active before the council and the PHP committee. In fact, had a very positive meeting this morning before the county council. Just last week, we advanced requests to the PHP committee to support the addition of more resident counselors, to support additional funds for Cider Mill security, as well as lights, to address balconies at Cider Mill, as well as provide capital improvement support for Elizabeth House demolition. The committee, PHP committee, wholeheartedly supported all of our requests, made some slight modifications in terms of options for the full council to consider in terms of tranches. We went before the full council this morning, and all of these items were advanced to the reconciliation list. So we will learn more in terms of where there in how this funding may play out. But getting to this stage is a great feat. This is the first time that we have advocated for additional staffing for resident services that has not received any additional FTEs dating back to 2008. And so the support around providing more resident services was definitely demonstrated by their interest and desire to support us. The only reason why I believe we may not receive all of our requests is because it is a tight budget year, but not because there definitely didn't seem to be support around the need. We also, while it's not reflected here, had support from one of our council members, Councilmember Friedson, at the PHP committee made a request to set aside funds for our housing production fund to be expanded and suggested that the county council could work in tandem with HOC, excuse me, to apply for the housing innovation fund that the state just launched in hopes that we can leverage those funds to expand the HPF. This was something that we were very excited to hear about, didn't expect, and it received the full support of the PHP committee with some restructuring and conversation with both the county executive office and the finance office was approved as a set aside for the next 6 months for us to work with the council to see if we are able to advance a successful application with the state. So we're very optimistic there and appreciative of the partnership of Councilmember Friedson and the unanimous support of the council in that regard. We will learn more in regards to the council's decisions by next week, I believe May 15th. On the federal side, there is the president's proposed budget. It's called the skinny budget is what it's being referred to, has been circulated. It has a number of significant modifications to our current programs. And as it stands, we, of course, are working in conjunction with other national associations to digest what's been proposed, to evaluate an advocacy strategy and approach moving forward. We are optimistic and hopeful that the Congress will reject the proposal. As you may know, it calls for a significant reduction in the housing choice voucher program and many changes in regards to how the program is administered, as well as changes and elimination of other programs that our industry as a whole rely on to provide the affordable housing that we do. So we are closely monitoring and will stay of course, provide any additional insight that we gain along the way. Because I've given a lot of updates related to legislative and policy modifications and changes, I did want to pause just to gauge if there are any questions or comments before moving forward with the next portion of my report.
Any questions from commissioners? Robin?
When I read it, I was confused or just need to be educated about how interest on the HPF loans get postponed and moved elsewhere to benefit. I just didn't understand it.
And actually, the latest rendition of the request no longer relies on the interest as being the source. It will now be a set aside in the HIF of $2.3 million, essentially restricting it to potentially be utilized for the Housing Innovation Fund. But the first iteration of Councilmember Friedson's concept was to redirect the interest that the HPF provides, which is 5% on projects, and to set those funds aside for the potential matching of a housing innovation fund. We've since spoken with Friedson and with the county executive's office and budget and trying to think through what's the easiest way to accomplish this without having to rewrite all of the bond agreements, et cetera. And that is no longer the proposal being advanced.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So does that address the county executive's concerns with on the interest side?
Well, yes. The county executive we heard today from Scott Bruton, who represents the county executive's housing department, indicated that the county executive was supportive of this request to set aside the 2.3. What they did ask is that we have some time parameters around exploring this opportunity. So 6 months before we would then have to come back to the council, because if we're unable to leverage the state funds, wanting to release those funds back to the HIF. And then there also was a request for a report on HPF every 6 months so that the county council can understand how we're moving along with leveraging that resource.
And would this be a one-time or an ongoing set aside? Since I know with the interest, if presumably that would have been ongoing if we weren't required to, return the interest payment, make the interest payments on those.
I think that this is just a step one. The county, I think what Friedson was exploring was the potential of standing up the initial arrangement and ultimately creating an agreement with the state that would allow for the county council to make an annual appropriation. The state fund is a 5-year fund. So at any event, the state fund would wind down in 5 years and the county would then have to continue appropriations for the fund moving forward as well.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you. If
Sure.
there are no further questions, oh, I'm sorry.
No, just not a question, it's a comment really about the federal budget for 26. And while I don't want to discuss that, just as a footnote, the fact is that that's just the first of 3 more presidential budgets that we'll see. So while we'll fight to survive through 26, we've got to also prepare for 27, 28, and 29. When, how that works, depending upon the reaction to this 26 budget, will determine the tenor, I think, of what to expect going forward. It's not going to get better.
Not to mention the reconciliation bill.
Mm.
Not to mention the reconciliation
Yeah.
efforts.
Okay.
So it's going to be just a first step. So, any
Absolutely.
other comments? Seeing none, Stephen. Okay, we'll
Thank
move
you.
to.
Oh, I will just move us very quickly. The next slide, please. Just as a spotlight in terms of rental assistance, you see that we continue to work hard to increase new admissions. We're up to 30 last month. Next slide. You will hear more about HOTMA and the outline of our policy regulations that we're required to change, as well as the discretionary changes that came before the ARC. We have meetings scheduled at the end of May. Commissioner Shaw, we will make sure you have the information you need to join. And these are virtual town halls where we will be explaining to the public what these HOTMA changes entail. And we are currently undergoing staff training. Next slide. There also are new requirements for inspections. These new rules are effective on October 1st. We are gearing up to begin these new inspection protocols, and this will also entail mass communication to landlords and to our residents as well. Next slide. And we're making positive strides towards implementing the statewide voucher program. Again, we are one of the first jurisdictions to move forward with entering into the MOU with the state. We advocated for the state voucher program. We definitely want to support it and demonstrate that it is a needed resource. And we are in the final stages of executing our MOU with the state and standing it up. Next slide. With that, I open for any other questions or comments.
Questions?
Just glad to see, the increase, voucher acceptances. What's the current utilization rate?
Our current utilization rate is 94%. We are doing a mass call up. This last month, we've called over 500 potential voucher holders and we're working really hard to increase the utilization. We did have a decline one year, last month, where there were a number of individuals who were no longer participating in the program. There were also some unfortunate, an uptick in terms of individuals who were deceased, according to the latest report we received from HUD, who publishes this on an ongoing basis. So it's cyclical in terms of ups and downs, but we are doubling down. It's an all hands on deck effort in terms of getting utilization back up.
Okay.
Thank you.
No other questions? Thank you very much for your report. We will now move to the agenda dealing with commissioner exchanges. Are there any discussion points that commissioners want to raise? None, seeing none. Thank you all. We'll move now to the approval of our minutes for April the 2nd for our open session and also for our closed session of April the 2nd. Can I get a motion to accept the minutes for the open and closed sessions for April 2nd?
So moved.
Probably moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. So ordered. Motion carried unanimously. We'll now go to the consent portion of our agenda. The consent portion deals with, in fact, adding a new participating lender to our single-family mortgage purchase program. Consent item. So can I get a motion to approve this consent item?
So moved. Second.
Probably moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. So ordered. Thank you very much. We now go to committee reports and recommendations for action. The first report will be coming from our Administrative and Regulatory Committee that is chaired by Commissioner Croom. Commissioner Croom?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, Commissioners. The Administrative and Regulatory met twice in April. We met on the 22nd and we met on the 29th to consider the item that is being presented to you for approval. Now, I want to say that I didn't make the 29th meeting, but I was told what happened, and I want to thank the people that did take over for me and help me out with that. I really appreciate that. Both meetings involved staff updates and recommendations regarding regulatory and discretionary policies of the Housing Opportunity through Modernization Act, HOCMA, for the Housing Choice Voucher Program. The item now requires the Commissioner's authorization to implement the requested regulatory and discretionary policies for HOC Housing Choice Voucher Program. The Administrative and Regulatory Committee supported advancing these modifications to the full commission. I would like to turn it over to our president, Mrs. Andrews, to introduce the items to the staff.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Committee members joined us twice last month to discuss HOCMA. And as you all probably saw, or at least we provided a link back to those meetings, pretty robust discussion and a lot of information to digest. We have had to produce an outline for the public, but also, of course, for you, that allows you to understand that there are multiple changes that we are required to make, many changes that are discretionary, and even more changes that we don't know when they will come into effect. We are just gearing up so that we are ready when it is time. As it stands, it appears as though HUD has asked for us to position ourselves to be ready, but there's still not confirmation that their program and plan to implement will remain on time. There are some technical challenges with implementation, and until they give green light, we won't be able to actually actually take the next steps, but we are taking the steps that we need to inform the public. All of these items that you'll hear summarized very high level today have gone before our resident advisory board, have gone out for public comment, have had an opportunity to be vetted by the committee, and we appreciate the support we've received. I will turn it over to Lynn Hayes, our Vice President of Housing Resources Division, who's supported by the Vice President of Compliance, Darcel Cox, to provide a high-level overview of our request.
Thank you, President Andrews. Good afternoon, Commissioners. For the record, I'm Lynn Hayes, Vice President of the Housing Resources Division. And Darcel Cox, Vice President of Compliance. We're here today to request authorization to implement the HOTMA regulatory and discretionary policies. We could go to, next slide. So this matter was presented to the Administrative and Regulatory Committees twice, as President Andrews mentioned, on April 22nd and April 29th. The committee supported our recommendation to implement the regulatory and discretionary policies for HOTMA and implement revisions to our administrative plan, chapters 2, 7, 12, and 22 specifically. The Department of Housing and Urban Development published the HOTMA final rule on February 14, 2023, revising regulations for income and assets. The full HOTMA implementation date is postponed until further notice. As President Andrews mentioned, we have to be able to use HUD's new software, which is not ready, called HIP, Housing Information Portal. HOC, however, must implement partial regulatory policies by July 1st and the discretionary policies at a later date once we receive notification from HUD. Prior to the complete compliance date, housing authorities are required to update our administrative plans to reflect HOTMA language. During the transition period between when we adopt the new policies, the HOTMA compliant policies, and the date that we fully implement HOTMA, we will have two policies in place, one that is updated for HOTMA and one pre-HOTMA policy. Next slide. So this slide represents the regulatory and discretionary policies that we must implement. The regulatory requirements are new definitions that we must use by July 1st, new definitions of excluded income, new policy requirements for de minimis errors, how we will handle de minimis errors, and how we will handle project-based voucher project cap. So those are regulatory requirements. The project-based voucher requirement is implementation date is June 6th, and the other three are July 1st. The discretionary policies that we discussed, there are several, and we had robust conversations. But the first is asset limitation at annual and interim re-exams, asset limitations for new admissions, net assets equal or less than $50,000, hardship exemptions for health and medical care expenses, hardship exemptions for child care expenses, permissive deductions, interim policy for income increases, interim policy for income decreases, reporting interim changes timely, revocation of consent form, a safe harbor policy, enterprise income verification, and zero income policies. Next slide. So we are again here today to request the approval of the commission to recommend these policy changes, discretionary and regulatory, which are supported by the Administrative and Regulatory Committee, and also authorize the president and her designee to implement the revisions to chapters 2, 7, 12, and 22 of our administrative plan for the Housing Choice Voucher Program. And we will take any questions at this time.
Are there any questions, Jeffrey?
Just a couple of
Sure.
questions. And more on implementation. So the mandatory ones have to be implemented in June, July. The discretionary ones, they'll let us know, I guess, when. Are we able to implement them earlier, or is it's dependent on their systems?
It's dependent on their system. So they have to revise the form called the 5058 form. It's a HUD 5058 form. And monthly, we transmit that form to HUD, and it really has the background of our families. And so they have to revise the form and their software. And so their software is not ready.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then is this just purely administrative, or are we anticipating any delays based on policy shifts in the administration or?
I would say that may be very feasible. So the original implementation date was supposed to be January 1st of 2024. Then it was postponed again to January 1st of 2025. And now we're just kind of waiting for, additional guidance from HUD.
Mhm.
So possibility, I would say yes.
There also are staffing limitations. And so just curious to see how they will be able to stand this up when some of the individuals that would need to actually make these modifications in their system, those divisions have been reduced significantly.
Other questions? Just commentary is that, I think this is one of the longest ramp times I've ever seen for a program that where it gets legislated, where to go rulemaking and everything else, and then the start date keeps running forward. Because I know the fanfare that went out around HOC and Inspire, and now we find ourselves 2 years later still waiting to implement it. But I'm glad that we are at least ahead of the curve. And when the trigger does get pulled, we'll be able to move forward with it. So I appreciate that work that's been done.
Paul, you have any questions? Paul, you have any questions?
Thank you, Madam Chair. No questions. I was able to, for the other commissioners, felt we had a really, as they said a couple times, a robust conversation at the committee level. And I just want to congratulate the staff on working through all these big and complicated implementation and policy issues.
Thank you so much. If there's no more questions, I wanted to see if the motion to approve resolution 2527, authorization to implement regulatory and discretionary policies for the housing opportunity through modernization, for the Housing Choice Voucher Program. Can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved in second. All in favor?
All right.
Aye. Any opposed? Nay. Hearing none, the resolution approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great job.
Thank you. That's the only item we have before the Administrative Regulatory Committee. The next committee is, in fact, Budget, Finance, and Audit Committee that I chair. There are 2 items that are being presented for the commissioners to consider. Both items were presented to the Commission Committee on Budget, Finance, and Audit, and all of them, and we have recommended them being sent forward to the full Commission. So with that, the first item is the fiscal year 2025 third year quarter budget adjustment. This one is a nice one. So I will turn to our president for discussion.
They're both nice, but here we are. This is a housekeeping matter, commissioners. This is an item that ultimately is seeking support to modify our budget to reflect our acquisition of Battery Park. I will turn it over to our finance team and our budget officer, Terry Fowler, to provide more details.
Thank you, President Andrews. Good afternoon, commissioners, viewing public, and the staff of HOC. As President Andrews mentioned, we acquired Battery Park in October of 2024. And the purpose of the budget amendment is to establish a budget for the period of November through June 30 of 2025. Staff is recommending that 25% of the projected cash flow be restricted, and that the unrestricted cash flow of just over $1 million would flow towards the agency budget. In addition, the agency would receive an asset management fee from the property to support agency overhead. If you go to page 4 of the packet, the impact of the budget amendment is a surplus of approximately $1.16 million in our FY25 budget. The amended budget did include a projected draw from the general fund operating reserve of approximately $1.3 million, and that projected draw would be reduced by the amount of the surplus. However, the actual position at year end is going to depend on our performance for the year. Primarily from our property portfolio, and as well as the timing of commitment and development fees. The budget will increase from approximately $352.9 million to $355.4 million, and there's an increase of approximately $74,000 in the capital budget. And I'd be happy to address any questions you may have.
Are there any questions from commissioners? If not, could I get a motion to approve resolution 25,
So moved.
Second.
Probably moved and seconded to approve resolution 2528. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nay. So the motion is carried unanimously.
Thank
Let's
you.
see if we can find another $1 million. It'd be good.
Thank you.
The next item to come before us, the Budget Committee and Finance Committee, is in fact procurement of property management services for the laureate. I'll turn to our president.
Thank you. Commissioners, we are seeking support to extend the contract that we currently have with Bozzuto Management in its role as our property manager for the laureate. In the packet, you will see that this property manager has done a great job of managing this asset that we have all been very proud of. And we're seeking support to extend their contract through October 31st, 2025. We did discuss this item with BF&A. We did share that there was a slight lapse in their contract and acknowledge that, as well as acknowledge the fact that we have taken steps to ensure that we do not have any other contracts that are in similar posture. And I will turn it over to our Vice President of Property Management, Ali Ozair, to provide more details.
Thank you, President Andrews. Good afternoon, Commissioners. For the record, Ali Ozair, Vice President of Property Management. This particular request pertains to the laureate, which is managed by Bozzuto Management currently. And the request is to renew the property management agreement with Bozzuto Management through October 31st, 2025. As the President just indicated, we do have an agreement in place with Bozzuto Management to continue to manage the property in accordance with the original property management agreement. The management fees pertaining to this contract are 3% of adjusted gross receipts, or $181,378. The term of the contract would be from November 1, 2024 through October 31st, 2025. We are satisfied with the performance of the property. It is currently 96% occupied. There are all of the regulatory requirements for the HIF and the MPD units are being taken care of properly, and there are no other major concerns with the management of our asset. The recent customer service surveys also had very positive feedback from our residents of their experience at the property and with Bozzuto Management. Therefore, actually, the renewal of the management contract also does not have any impact on the budget, as the calendar 25 budget already accounted for the fees associated with this contract. Therefore, the staff is recommending that the Commission join the staff's recommendation that Commission approve the renewal of the property management services contract with Bozzuto at the laureate. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from commissioners? Now, can I get a motion to approve resolution 25-29?
So moved.
Probably moved and seconded to approve resolution 2529. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. There's no other items to come relative to the Finance and Audit Committee, I will now turn to our next committee, which is our Development Finance Committee, which is chaired by Commissioner Merkowitz.
Thank you, Chair Priest. The first item that we discussed at our committee meeting has to do with the issuance of a single-family mortgage revenue bond, and I will turn it over to President Andrews for discussion.
Yes, thank you. Commissioners, our single-family home buyers program is one of the most successful programs in the county, but also, of course, in the state. The minute that we have funds available within 6 months' time, they're utilized in conjunction with down payment assistance that we also administer with support from the county. We are seeking your support to advance another tranche of the single-family bond program so that we could continue to support our initiative here to advance first-time home buyer options in this county. And I will turn it over to our Senior Executive Vice President, Kayreen Brown, to provide you with an overview of this request.
Thank you, President Andrews. Good afternoon, commissioners and staff and the viewing public. For the record, again, my name is Kayreen Brown, and I'm Senior Executive Vice President. I'm presenting this item. Michael Somerville, who would ordinarily present, is away on leave, and I'm pleased to take his place today. We're asking your approval of the structure, cost of issuance budget, and adoption of series resolution for the issuance of single-family mortgage revenue bonds. And I haven't done this in a while, so it's a pleasure to do this. The last single-family bond issue closed in June of 2024 and produced about $30 million of lendable proceeds. All of the funds have been expended, and we're now using primarily the secondary market through mortgage-backed securities to fund mortgages. We've also exhausted all of our CAF closing cost funds, which provides about $40,000 for each borrower to fund closing costs. We still have the revolving county closing cost funds available to us. And so this starts a whole new program once we close the bond issuance in June, and the closing costs counted from the funds from the county become available on July 1. When we presented this to the Development and Finance Committee on April 29th, there was a little bit of a hiccup with the numbers. So I wanted to just highlight for you that the total amount of the bond issuance that we're proposing hasn't changed. However, just the components of it, and I'll walk you through that as I walk through the PowerPoint presentation. So what you'll see on the screen here shows that the bond issuance will be comprised of replacement refunding bonds, and I'll talk about that in just a second. It will also include new money bonds. And I'm trying to not be technical because I really want you to understand what we're talking about. And that includes the allocation of volume cap. For private activity bonds, there needs to be an allocation of volume cap. And that is because single-family mortgages are considered private use, similar to a tax credit transaction, which is a private use. And we're also included in this bond issuance taxable bonds, because that helps to expand. It blends with the tax-exempt financing and expands the size of the bond issuance while keeping the proceeds competitive. Next slide, please. I'll just use my slide a little bit. It's easier to see. So for this bond issuance, we're asking the commission we're recommending that the commission approve up to $30 million in issuance, the allocation of $20 million of volume cap, to approve a cost of issuance budget of up to $610,000, authorize the president or executive director to increase the size of the issuance of up to $36 million, and to adopt one or more series resolutions for the issuance of the bonds. Next slide, please. So what we're proposing here on the left, you'll see that the $30 million issuance includes, as I said, the 2 million of recycled bonds. In our history, we typically recycle volume cap in order to preserve that tool within our program. And what that means is, and I explained during the Development and Finance Committee, when prepayments come into the program, rather than using those prepayments to pay off bondholders, we draw on the PNC line of credit and use those proceeds to pay off the bondholders and have the prepayments sit at the trustee. So in the next bond issuance, we recycle those dollars into a bond issuance, and with the new bond proceeds, we pay off the PNC line. The commission has approved a $5 million authority within the line of credit, and that's what we use. And that allows the prepayments to be recycled into making new mortgages. And that's how we're able to extend the life of volume cap. And it's been very, very lucrative throughout our history. So with those 2 millions, based on the prepayments that we've received so far, we estimate that we'll have approximately 2 million of those to recycle. With that, we're adding 20 million of our available volume cap. We have about 60 million that's available to us for both multifamily and single family. We're proposing and requesting approval to allocate 20 million to the single family program. And so that gives us about 22 million of tax exempt financing. And with that, we're proposing $8 million of taxable. Again, we'll blend and we'll have a $30 million issuance. Because of the volatility in the current market, interest rates have been up and down, as you all know, you've been following. We're asking you to also give the president the authority to increase the taxable portion by about 6 million. So that will bring the total amount of the issuance, if market conditions allow for it, to $36 million. And so on the right-hand side of the screen, the 2 million of recyclables will remain the same. The 20 million of volume cap will remain the same. The only change would be a $6 million increase to the taxable portion, increasing that to 14 million, and the overall bond issuance would increase to 36 million. Next slide, please. And so, again, that will give us 36 million of lendable proceeds. And we would, because of the tax exempt nature and the volume cap, the new volume cap, we'll have to have a TEFRA hearing and go through the entire process where the county executive would need to approve the bond issuance. And as I said before, we have about 60 million of volume cap available to us, and 20 million will be allocated to a single family program. Next slide, please. The cost of issuance budget is shown here, pretty straightforward. This is normal for a single family issuance. We're not proposing the use of proceeds from the bond issuance. The single family program has revenue in the revenue fund under the program, and so we're proposing to use those funds to pay for the cost of issuance. Should the amount be 30 million, the estimated cost is about 555,000. If we're able to issue up to 36 million, the cost is estimated to be 610,000. Next slide, please. One of the components of the bond issuance is the approval of SERS resolution, and that really, this is where the heart of the actual bond issuance, the details lie. It includes funds and accounts that need to be set up, the details with respect to interest rates and such. And so the bond council prepares a resolution, and some of those details are filled in, or all the details are filled in once it's available and the bonds are sold. Next slide, please. Here you'll have the schedule. Once the commission approves this action that we're requesting tonight, we'll finalize the terms of the preliminary official statement that gets published, and we really start our work toward marketing the bonds. We expect that this bond issuance, the sale will happen, and that's when the bonds are priced. That's when we know what the interest rate is going to be, and really whether we're able to sell 36 million of bonds or 30 million of bonds. And then the closing is expected to occur in June, and the bond redemption happens on July 1, and that's when the recycling happens of those $2 million. Next slide, please. And these are some details related to the program. Hopefully you've had a chance to look at it. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer it. But we wanted to provide you with a little bit of information with respect to how the program is performing. Some statistics. We provide quarterly information. Questions, I'll be happy to answer them as well. Next slide, please. And so again, here are some details related to the participants in the program for newer commissioners. When during our orientation, we shared with you the players in the transaction. We've got our financial advisor who helps with the structuring of the transaction with our underwriters. We've got our bond counsel and our lead manager, Bank of America. I'm sorry, we have our trustee there, and we have our lead manager and co-managers in the transaction. And there is no direct fiscal impact on our operations. As I said before, the cost of the issuance is paid for from the indenture, from revenues in the indenture. And I should point out that the single-family indenture, although it's not so obvious for newer commissioners, and just a refresher for commissioners who've been here for a while, it's important because it adds to the wealth of the commission in that when we price the bonds, tax law allows us to charge up to 1 1/8 above the bond yield for mortgages. So we're able to pay for cost of issuance budget when we issue new bonds. We're also able to pay for servicing fees for retained servicing to lenders. And so wealth over time builds up in the indenture. So when the commissioners, when one asks, well, why allocate volume cap? It's partly for that reason, because it helps to build wealth in the indenture and strengthen the overall balance sheet of the commission. And so fiscal impact is long-term. And also we're able to pay for the cost to operate the program for staffing. So when Terry presents her budget and you see that draw from the indenture, that's how over time we're able to pay for the operating cost of the program. And so finally, again, we're asking for authorization to issue the bonds for up to 30 million, approve an allocation of 20 million of volume cap, approval of the cost of issuance budget of up to 555,000 if we're issuing only 30 million, 610 if we're issuing up to 36 million. But more importantly, we're asking for authorization for the president to increase the size of the bond issuance if the interest rate environment allows for it. And finally, the adoption of one or more series resolution in support of the bond issue. One will be tax exempt non-AMT issuance, and one series will be a taxable series. And that's my presentation. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thanks. Does today's decision by the Fed to hold rates steady affect the likelihood of us being able to increase the issuance?
So the Fed decision really impacts immediately and directly, but Fed funds rate, the overnight rate, we're looking at, and so on the short end of the curve, yes, long end, no. And so altogether, we're expecting rates to more or less remain in our projected range. So not in a major way, but there could be some impact because on the short end of the curve, rates will be lower. In the long end, not so much so. But again, we're monitoring and watching, and we'll take advantage as we see fit.
Yeah. When will we make a decision as to whether or not to?
The pricing?
Yeah.
Well, right up to game day. We
Okay.
will right up to, we'll be watching and restructuring right up until.
Let me just also weigh in here. We're very fortunate. We have a long-standing financial advisor that we, HOC, has had partnership with, Kane Mitter. They work to really be our advocate, to look over what's being proposed by the potential partner that's issuing the bonds on our behalf. They provide counsel in regards to the structure and also support our staff as we look at what the timing may be and where we may want to come into the market. We have multiple calls leading up to the actual closings. Typically, the board chair is also included on those calls that include market projections, timing and considerations, evaluation of other issuances that are happening around that same time, and how it may impact our program. And it was really our financial advisor who also gave us the recommendation to go a little higher so that we are able to make an offering that is larger and that could ultimately yield more bonds, more loans. And as you can see, went up at least 20 additional mortgages that we may be able to provide if we're able to go at this higher yield. So we're requesting the flexibility because we know the market has been quite volatile, but we do believe that we would be able to administer the program at its baseline. We're just trying to explore if there's a way to leverage this moment in time to even deliver more.
Yeah, no, if there's an opportunity to be able to provide more lower cost mortgages, it's definitely worthwhile. On the non-taxable side, so in the committee, we talked about like either 16 or 18 million of volume cap. It was a little, and so now we're talking 20. I know we've got 60 million about in availability, but we also have a lot of other planned uses. So, this is a slight bump from what the committee was saying, we had discussed there. I appreciate the value of using volume cap for this. And I assume the answer to my question that I'm about to ask is yes, because you wouldn't recommend it otherwise. But, given, that we have a shortfall, we're comfortable with an additional allocation of volume cap for this purpose from what we had discussed in committee. It's
And Kayleen,
4 million.
Yes, there was a slight adjustment there, but the larger adjustment is really on the taxable side, which wouldn't trigger. But yes, there was a slight.
But it's the increase on the non-taxable size that triggers the additional use of volume cap, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And there was confusion in regards to how the replacement refunding calculation impacts our overall ask. And that's where the calculation modification needed to be presented. But in terms of what we presented to the state, we included 20 million in our request of the state. As the commission knows, the state doesn't typically necessarily support our single family program. They prefer we use our funds towards multifamily. However, with an asterisk of come back to us as you move forward with your developments, we will work with you to ensure that you're able to leverage the funds that are available. So our state ask actually reflected this same amount. It was the packet and the materials that came before the committee that needed to be modified.
Right.
Is that comment you just made, Chelsea, regarding just Montgomery County, or the state just generally doesn't care for single family MRBs?
Well, the state has their own program.
Right.
And they are incentivized and encourage
I got it.
everyone else to use the state's program.
I got it.
Our program, however, yields a lower rate for our county residents, and therefore we continue to advance.
And they're not the only state to think slightly parochially in that manner.
Right.
So I assume the problem with municipal rates is someone said tax exemption should go away and the municipal market has gone a bit wild. Isn't that right?
Well,
Much more than the Fed or anything else. It's more of a discussion about losing tax exemption.
there is a big discussion around it, and there are legitimate concerns.
I'm not diminishing, but that's really the problem more than the Fed or anything else. It's that noise. Or not. Maybe you disagree.
It is a loud
It's a problem.
noise. It is a lot of noise. In fact, as we're discussing, and you'll probably hear it when the presentation of the SAGE finance plan is brought before you, we are thinking through, how to ensure that that when we're issuing tax exempt bonds, we're thinking of timing to ensure that if it does go away, we're at the table now to make sure we can benefit from it.
I was going to say it's one thing to get rid of it, which would be catastrophic, but it's another thing to do it retroactively. So that would.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I'm not sure how that happens, but it's a whole different discussion. I would also add to Chelsea's point that in the state of Maryland, HOC is probably the only active issuer of single-family bonds. And so the state issues for the rest of the state. And so they would like HOC to be part of
Part of the
that.
fold.
Yes.
This is great. You should do this more often, by the way.
I'm sure Chelsea would love me to do that too.
Hey, Karen, could
Yes.
you just go over, just because I think I wrote something down wrong. Could you just go back over the 2 million to be recycled?
Yes.
Is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay. that's it.
So when we receive a prepayment, somebody, so you have a mortgage and you decide, oh, it's time for me to pay it off. So ordinarily we would take those prepayments and pay off the bondholder. So rather than doing that, we HOC draw on the PNC line of credit and take those dollars and pay off the bondholder and take your mortgage prepayment and have it sit at the trustee.
Oh,
And then when we issue new bonds, we take those bond proceeds and pay back PNC and take the money the prepayment that was sitting at the trustee and recycle that into making a new mortgage, the bond issue. And that way we don't have to allocate new volume cap to that private use. So in doing so, we've recycled that prepayment into making a new mortgage.
oh, okay.
And so we've done that throughout the history of the program, and that's how we've sustained it.
Thank you, Karen.
Welcome.
Are there additional questions?
No question, but I certainly on the point about the way Maryland deals with its bonds on the single family. From in Virginia, where I dealt with Virginia, they make it impossible literally for a jurisdiction like Montgomery County not to deal through the state on bonds, because I was always competing with trying to use our bond authority. They offered not only a lot more funding sources, and they made you, if you use them, the other funding, you have to use their bond financing. So it made it really tough for you.
Right.
But I'm glad we have at least worked that out.
Don't give the state any ideas.
No, no, not to emulate. Don't emulate Virginia.
I do have a quick question. I just wanted to get clarification. Great explanation, Karen, by the way. Thank you very much. So you said we have $60 million of bond cap authority. By we, do you mean HOC or the
HOC.
county? HOC specifically.
It is the county's volume cap, but HOC is the designated housing finance agency that issues the bonds for the county to fund transactions in the county, both single family and multifamily.
And you mentioned we need the county executive's approval.
Yes, because for private activity bond issuance, the highest office in the jurisdiction must sign off on the TEFRA hearing. So when we're issuing private activity bonds, single family or multifamily, we must publish to the public. We must have a TEFRA hearing, and the results of that TEFRA hearing must be put before the county executive, the highest office in the jurisdiction. So he has to approve it. It gets circulated through several county offices, DHCA, the finance office, et cetera, legal, and the county executive signs it. And if we don't have that, we can't issue the bonds.
Got it. And do we, and what's the process for getting the allocation in the first place, the 60 million?
It's automatic based on the population in the county.
Okay, per capita. Great.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Very helpful.
If there are no additional questions, I will make a motion to support the staff's recommendation and to approve resolutions 25-30 and 25-30B.
Second.
It's been probably moved and seconded to approve resolution 25-30 and B. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. So ordered. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you.
It's good to see you, Kaylee. Uh, The next item from the committee is a discussion on an amendment to the final development plan of the Sage at our development at Westside Shady Grove. And I will turn it over to President Andrews.
Thank you. Commissioners, we continue to take step by step to advance this exciting development that will be adjacent to our Laureate site at the Shady Grove Metro. As commissioners know, we've come before you for at various stages of this development. The last was the naming of the Sage, and here we are. Right now, we'd like to propose an amendment to the final development plan. You will hear that we are advancing a recommendation to move forward with the general contractor that underwent the procurement, and it was a very positive procurement process in terms of the number of interested contractors that responded, so very competitive. We do feel as though we've been able to negotiate great rates that we need to lock in now. And you will also hear advanced a recommendation in regards to securing our contract with the county in regards to their ability to leverage the first floor as a library. This was a part of the master development agreement that EYA was able to garner with the county, and we would be advancing that cause for the first floor. There are other terms that are also included that will be explained in this presentation, but just wanted to indicate that not only will you hear from the development team today to advance this next step, but next month, our mortgage finance team will come back before the commission in regards to the final financing plans. And this is the two-step process that we take to ensure, one, that we have a separation between our finance and our real estate division, as well as an opportunity to independently evaluate what financing structure might be best for the development. So you will hear from our development team today, and I will turn it over to our Vice President of Development, Nihar Shah, as well as Alex Loren, who has been championing and leading this project, our Housing Acquisition Manager.
Thank you, President Andrews, and good evening, Commissioners. For the record, I am Nihar Shah, Vice President of Real Estate at the Housing Opportunities Commission. This item was brought in front of the Development and Finance Committee last week on April 29th and garnered support to be presented to the Commission this evening. And the Commission has also seen and approved this matter at the January Commission. However, we are returning with some minor changes to the final development plan. The Sage, formerly known as Westside Shady Grove Building B, is the last multifamily development that's part of the master plan community known as Westside Shady Grove, and is programmed to have 413 units, of which 124 of those units will be made affordable. With all of the Class A amenities that one is to expect in modern ground-up development, and is also inclusive of a 7,000 square foot retail space on the ground floor. As part of the master plan community and the public use programming for the site will be purchased from the county at less than $12,500 per market rate unit, or roughly $3.6 million, considerably less than what is currently market for a land purchase. EYA, a private Montgomery-based developer, currently owns the rights to purchase the site from the county and has been HOC's partner in the entitlement design portion of this of the site and will continue to do so for the construction and lease up. The county has also elected to exercise their right to lease the 7,000 square foot retail bay on the first floor as a public amenity and has deemed it to be a branch library. Negotiations with the county on the lease terms have been collaborative and been fruitful. with the county agreeing to the lease, the space at a 10-year term at a rent of 10-year amortization of the cost to deliver a cold, dark shell fit out, which comes out to approximately $37 a square foot. They have additional 5-year terms after this first 10-year term expires. In addition to the lease negotiations, we have advanced contract discussions with CBG, the commission selected a general contractor for this project, and have negotiated a guaranteed maximum price with and without the Davis-Bacon prevailing wages, pending final approval by the commission of the financing plan that will be brought forth to the commission next month. Staff has included methods to work through some of the macroeconomic volatility, including incentivizing CBG to purchase materials within 120 days of the notice to proceed with a higher earnings split of the buyout savings, specifying domestic materials, warehousing and storing said materials, and also providing an incentive fee for completing the project under budget and under schedule. Next slide, please. For the budget and fiscal impact analysis of this, will that at closing of the construction loan, the reimbursement of all the draws made on our reloc will be remitted back to PNC, roughly $6.4 million. And the formal action for this is for this evening. Staff recommends that the commission approve the amendment for the final development plan for the SAGE and authorize the president or executive director to execute a GMP with the general contractor in an amount not to exceed 106 million and 106 and 500,000 under the private construction loan method, or 120 million for FHA risk share. In addition, we'd like the commission to authorize the assignment and assumption of all the contracts, agreements, and regulatory approvals from EYA to this future owner, and authorized HOC and the future owner and its members to negotiate and enter into the loan documents, whether it be private or FHA risk share. And lastly, authorize the president to execute the lease with Montgomery County for the commercial space at the SAGE. Happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions from the committee or from the commission? If not, I will make a resolution to approve, or a motion to approve resolution 25-31.
Second.
It has been properly moved and seconded to approve resolution number 25-31. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. So ordered. Thank you. Yeah, not too.
Thank you.
Before we move to we have now finished our committee reports. And before we move to our Development Corporation meeting, I see that our representative from the Resident Association is present, and if he is prepared to have anything to say today, Panchuk.
Good afternoon, Commissioners, President Andrews, staff, and members of the public. For the record, my name is Adam Pinchuk, President of the Resident Advisory Board, and today I will be sharing an update on the activities of the board for April 2025. At that meeting, President Andrews held a swearing in of the newest RAB member, Ms. Patricia Fortune, who is representing the low-income tax credit position on the board. We have one more member that was selected to represent HOC's supportive housing program, but she was unable to attend, and we will update the commissioners as soon as that person is sworn in. At the meeting, the board received a presentation of the Housing Opportunity Through Modernization Act, HOTMA, from President Andrews, Lynn Hayes, Vice President of the Housing Resource Division, Meta Lim, Assistant Vice President of Housing Resources Division, Darcel Cox, Vice President of the Compliance Division, Elliot Rule, and Niran Adams Escalera. President Andrews led off by stating that the team will walk the board through changes that must be made pursuant to HUD's new rules and regulations pertaining to HOTMA, and they would also give us insight and recommendations to those discretionary parts of HOTMA. This was a very comprehensive briefing by the team. And after that was over, we had engaged in a very robust question and answer with the staff members. And we were told that we would be kept apprised of any updates through the course of the coming months and year. We wanted, on behalf of the RAB, I wanted to express our deep appreciation for the presentation and work by all of the team members and the time they took to answer all of our questions. Our next meeting is scheduled for May 19th. And that's it. Are there any questions or comments?
Very good. One of the things, with the itinerary of staff who came to your meeting, you have almost as much staff present at the Resident Association meeting as we do at our commission meeting.
I hope I didn't forget anybody.
No, it's very good. Any other questions? No. So,
Thank you for that presentation. Would it be possible to get a copy or a sample of a few of the questions? I was just interested.
Absolutely. I'd have to go back to see how we memorialized those questions because it was just organic conversation Q&A with the team. I do know that the RAB did provide some recommendations and requests in writing. I think at some point we were able to respond to those, but I'm not certain if it was for HOTMA or if it was for the item that came before you all right before HOTMA.
So the written requests and recommendations were for the 5-year plan and the 1-year plan,
Yes,
which we
thank
did receive answers to before we signed off on that. I do believe we videotape all of our meetings, so there should be at least a video of that, and then I can speak to, we can find out how we can get some transcripts for you. Absolutely.
I appreciate that. Thank
Sure.
you.
And then just on that, I guess I was curious along the same lines that, were there any concerns expressed by the advisory board for the, particularly on the discretionary policy changes?
On the discretionary policy changes, I think the general consensus was that there was an appreciation for the fact that the staff was trying to lean into the interpretation that would be most favorable to tenants. I think there was some sense of disappointment with the mandatory changes that were required by HUD and Congress, specifically as it pertained to the percentage of out-of-pocket medical expenses that could be deducted. We were told that that had been raised from 3% threshold to a 10% threshold. And so for a lot of the community who are elderly and disabled, who have very high medical expenses, we felt that that seemed a bit punitive. The team did explain to us that there would be a phase-in for tenants who would experience a very high increase in their rent because of that change. And I think it would go from, instead of 3% to 10% to 3% to 5% in the first year, and then, but eventually would go to 10% for everybody. I think that was the biggest concern that was raised during the meeting.
Okay. No, I appreciate it.
Sure.
With the 2 additional residents that you have on your board, what is your total now?
You really got me there.
No,
I'm sorry. Because one hasn't been sworn in, and we may have another who may have to step down. So the numbers are a little fluid right now, and we may be voting on another replacement. But I can get you that number at the next meeting.
No problem. Thank you.
We do have a quorum, so we're okay with that.
thank you very much. Appreciate your attendance, participation.
Thank you.
Can I get a motion to recess the meeting in order to convene the Development Corporation meeting listed on the agenda?
So moved.
Second? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We will now convene the Development Corporation meeting that is listed on the agenda. The development corporations are entities that are wholly controlled by HOC and own various properties. For each development corporation, the board of directors is comprised of the HOC commissioners, and the officers are the same as the officers of the commission. I now call the meeting of the VPC1 Corporation to order. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from April the 2nd, 2025?
So moved.
Second? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. So ordered. With no further business to come before the corporation, this meeting is adjourned. We will now reconvene into our regular HOC monthly meeting, and that item, we should fill out corporation, okay. Pursuant to section 3-305B and D of the General Provisions Article of the Annotated Code of Maryland, I move to adopt the written closing statement dated May the 7th, 2025, and to adjourn this open session to a closed session to discuss 3 topics. The first topic is the potential partnership for a property located in Deerwood. The second topic is financing of a property located in Bethesda. HOC must discuss both topics in closed session to protect private parties' confidential commercial and financial information. Section 3-305B13 allows these topics to be discussed in closed session. The final topic is potential litigation involving HOC's properties. HOC must discuss this topic in closed session to protect attorney-client privilege and its interest in the potential litigation. Section 30305B7, B8, and B13 allows this topic to be discussed in closed session. If a member of the public is watching this meeting in real time on YouTube, wishes to object to the closed meeting, please comment in the YouTube chat box or contact HOC's General Counsel. Instructions can be found in the Open Meetings Act objection section, which is posted on HOC's website. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Probably moving second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, nay. So ordered. We will now go and adjourn our regular meeting and go into closed session. Thank you very much. The regular meeting is adjourned as of 5:25 p.m.
Cheers.